in land where freedom was foreseen, a bitter truth ingrained and keen. From the roots of history, a haunting tale of racism's grip, an unyielding gale. Through chains and lashes, the spirit bore a burden unequal, an unjust score. From stolen lives, stolen dreams emerged, yet resilience ignites in hearts submerged. In cotton fields where sweat and tears amassed, an indomitable spirit forever steadfast, harvesting hope through sorrow's strife, black souls resilient, fighting for life. From whispered prayers in fields of pain to songs of resilience through pouring rain. Marches, protests, voices rising high, demanding justice, refusing to be denied. From brave pioneers who dared to dream to leaders who fought for a nation to be redeemed. Trailblazers like stars, their light ablaze, for equality's dawn, their fearless ways. Harriet's underground of freedom's call, rejected bus seats defying the wall. Our ancestors' dreams like thunder shook, awakening consciousness until they took from the blood-stained streets to classrooms wide, the fight for justice, a swelling tide. Black history, a tapestry so grand, rich with strength, resilience hand in hand. Through struggles endured, a truth emerges clear. Black lives do matter. Our voices they will hear. Let us expose the truth, ignite the flame, break the shackles in this pernicious game. In strength we stand shoulder to shoulder, confronting unrighteousness, making it louder. For in the book we hold the key to a reality where our souls are free. Remember the past, carve a path anew, where truth, righteousness, and justice ensue. Let this spoken word, its message be profound. The history of racism forever unbound. In ebony echoes of pain and pride lies the history that time tried to hide. A painting of humanity dipped in diverse hues. In America's galleries, the black, often misconstrued, from the mother of all creation, trade set sail beneath an ominous gloom, chains shackled in an iron embrace, ancestors of greatness reduced to race. Through cotton fields as endless as the sea, voice and song born enduring plea. Racism, this monstrous, unending fight, a blood-stained banner was not our plight. From the blood-soaked soil sprouted hope anew, as strength was born in the diasporic brew. Despite the turmoil, the heart never knew defeat. The rhythm of resilience echoed in each heartbeat. Jazz and blues, grit and grace, culture power in every face, a testament to the undying will, an echo bouncing off history's hill. From the shadow of slavery thundered mighty voices, freedom and equality relentlessly making choices. Fannie, Marcus, or Brother Malcolm's echo, in their words, seeds of justice they sow. Yet every chance to change utterly missed, black and beautiful still persist on this list of pigment, prejudice, strangled dreams, unshed tears, a legacy of struggle through the years. Yet no fetter can cage the human heart. No hate is high enough to limit. For nestled within every sorrowful song is the refrain, we are strong. America's blacks, a symphony of history's refrain, a testament to resilience amidst the rain of racial storms that relentlessly batter. Yet the message is clear. Black lives do matter. Underground risings of hope and prayer. America, listen to your own truth if you dare, for history cannot, will not be erased. To the chronicles of race, judgment must be faced. This America's history deeply rooted in pain, yet the sun still shines after the heaviest rain. No matter the struggle, one truth remains dense. Our hue and shade never lessened our essence.
Are y'all tired yet? Because I don't think you're tired enough. So, you want to hear what people say, but every time they mention anything about the incidents we see with our children, it's always the same thing and it has that color blindness to it when we know that there is obvious racial targeting and attacks, right? Nobody wants to confront the issue. Do you know that racism is deadly to your children? Are you tired yet? Do you understand that it changes who they are and who they were created to be? So, we talk about, oh, our children deserve an education. And you talk about the grades and the report cards and all of the, scholastic things, but you never consider how it's changing their very DNA, how it's destroying their lives and their health to send them into a place where they are going to be mistreated, undervalued, misrepresented, or not represented, and undereducated. So, I always get these parents that talk about, well, it's not that bad. Well, how much better do you want it to get? And y'all can argue all day whether or not better is a word, right? But we're going to have this conversation today. How much worse do you want it to get? What you waiting for them to bop your child upside the head? Because the warfare is happening to their minds, to their souls and their spirits, killing their spirits. And obviously, it's affecting their health. So that is their bodies. And I'm going to show you how this looks, right? Because it starts out with, I'm going to drop my child off at this school. Then you start seeing signs of your child don't want to go in. They got a stomach ache. They got, nervousness. They're saying, Mommy, I'm sick. I don't want to go to school today. You think, oh, they're trying to get out of it. That's not what's happening. I'm going to show you. Hold on. I'm going to show you right here in the data. And I was telling you guys in 2019 to pay attention to this data. What are you waiting for? For them to utterly destroy your child? And then you enter your child one way and they come out a way that they were never designed or created to be. And then we look around at the generation that don't want to stand up and arch their back and fight because they getting racially attacked all the way into college because you thought, okay, higher education is going to get better, right? Can't even secure a job where they're not under the same kind of attack. And then the attack is still mental warfare, because if you don't concede to what we're doing, because we're white and we say so, because we have the resources and we tell you what to do, how to do it, and no, you're not going to push us past our comfort levels here if you want a job, right? So let's talk about this today. We're going to talk about this, and I hope you get the point. And I hope you decide to stand up and do something different. You're not going to heal a system that was designed with your oppression and exploitation in mind. Okay? And so all of us are not afraid. Some people are, right? You got parents talking about, you know what? My child did good in 6th grade. Is that all you got to hold on to? 12 grades and your child had a good teacher in the 6th grade. That's pathetic. Okay. And so I'm not here to tell you the truth. I'm not here to prance around or tiptoe around the tulips with you. Right? I'm talking about the livelihood and the health and wellness of your child. And if you leave it up to your oppressor, they're going to roll it out slowly. Well, maybe 30 out of 100 Black kids will do good this year, right? And they were the 30 that was going to make it anyway. So don't attribute it to the system's success of working with your child. And the other children that are watching our children get mistreated, devalued, underrepresented. And then you say, I'm going to go up there to that school and talk to the principal, and I'm going to call the superintendent, and I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. Okay, how's that working for you? How's that working for you? Because you went off on the principal. You went off on the teacher. But what you did was show your child that I don't like what they're doing, but I'm going to send you back to the people that I don't like what they're doing. And maybe just magically or some kind of way, they're just going to come and do better today. And now you just taught your child how not to fight the right way and how not to fight back. So we're going to talk about this today. We're going to talk about this today in a real way. And we're going to use a different kind of data, because, I get parents talking about, I'm tired of hearing the academic data, Christina, about our kids. They can't read, they can't write. And how come they don't talk about all the good things they do? We're going to talk about a different data today. So let's go on over to that data, because I was telling you in 2019. I was telling you in 2019 that acute health issues that our children face because of the impact of racism on child and adolescent health. Now, you'll listen to the American Academy of Pediatrics, though, won't you? because you might see them as a credible source of information, right? So let's look at what the American Academy of Pediatrics is saying about us and our children's health after we've endured a racist education system, a racist system altogether. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Okay. As you can see right here is the volume. I'm on the official website from the American Academy of Pediatrics policy statement, August 1st, 2019. Told y'all, pay attention, okay? Because everybody know what's wrong with you except for you. There's too much research. We've been researched and studied endlessly. People know what the problem is. You think they don't know what the problem is? You think telling them off is going to make them fix it? It's the age-old problem. You better learn how to fight a different way. Definitely the way is not to continue to send your kids back for the mistreatment where they got to sit among other kids watching them be mistreated like it's a white supremacist boot camp training exercise. And yeah, I'm upset because I get a phone call every day. I get a phone call every day from either one of you, one of your cousins, or one of our distance cousins, okay? Telling me what happened to their child at school. And I asked the question, you gonna send them back? So what is our action, right? What is our action? Because if we keep complaining and sending the kids back, that's not the right action. So let's look at this today. All right. As you can see, all of these names underneath this title right here are people that contributed to this policy statement in some fashion or another, are connected to that, right? To that policy statement that came out in August 1st, 2019, about the impact of racism on child and adolescent health. So all these doctors and sections on adolescent health, Council on Community Pediatrics, and the Committee on Adolescents know what's happening to your black ass, but you don't know. Yeah, we're gonna go here today. This is real talk. Okay. And so let's look at this down here. It gives you the phone numbers. There you go. The authors have indicated they have no potential conflict of interest to disclose this information. Right? The financial disclosures have indicated no financial relationships relevant to this article, so you can assume that the information is based on their scientific research and it don't have no added agenda to it. It's just a report. The American Academy of Pediatrics is committing to addressing the factors that affect child and adolescent health with a focus on issues that may leave some children more vulnerable than others. Racism is a social determinant of health that has a profound impact on the health status of children, adolescents, emerging adults, and their families. That means you too. You know how when the kids come back home and they said they was called a nigger at school and it hit you some kind of way because you start thinking about, wow, that may have happened to you. Then you call up your mama and your daddy and you say, hey, they called my son or daughter a nigger at school today, or they wrote it on the bathroom stall. And your mama and daddy say they still doing that. So yeah, emerging adults and their families. Okay. Although progress has been made towards racial equality and equity, the evidence to support the continued negative impact of racism on health and well-being through implicit and explicit biases, institutional structures, and interpersonal relationships is clear. The objective of this policy statement is to provide an evidence-based document focused on the role of racism in child and adolescent health development and health outcomes. Okay. By acknowledging the role of racism in child and adolescent health, pediatricians And other pediatric health professionals will be able to proactively engage in strategies to optimize clinical care, workforce development, professional education, systems engagement, and research in a manner designed to reduce the health effects of structural, personally mediated, and internalized racism and improve the health and well being of all children, adolescents, emerging adults, and their families. This was 2019. Let's go back. How that working for us? That work? This policy statement change anything? Civil rights change anything? I'm asking a question. We're looking at this from an honest perspective. That's why the title of this show is Truth Be Bold. You got the answer. If your condition isn't changing, who is controlling the terms of your condition? Huh? Is it you? Let's go here. Subjects: adolescent health, medicine, and community pediatrics. Topics: racism, adolescent health services, child health. So here's the statement of the problem. Let's see what they say the problem. What are the doctors and the committees at the American Academy of Pediatrics saying is the problem? Racism is a system of structuring opportunity and assigning value based on the social interpretation of how one looks, which is what we call race. That unfairly disadvantages some individuals and communities, unfairly advantages other individuals and communities, and saps the strength of the whole society through the waste of human resources. Obviously, they got a footnote there. Check it out. I'm going to read this, but I want y'all to come back and look at where is the research about the waste of human resources that racism saps the strength of the whole society through the through the waste of human resources. I want you to look that up. Okay. Racism is a social determinant of health. That means that it affects your health outcomes. And we know that it affects so many domains and sectors that it might affect your healthcare treatment. So the American Academy of Pediatrics decided they were going to come and do something different. Okay. That was in 2019. How is it helping you? Had your doctor talked to you about that? Did your doctor admit when your child was having anxiety and acute health symptoms at school that was probably because they was in a racist environment? Did you know to ask? That has a profound impact. Racism is a social determinant of health that has a profound impact on the health status of children, adolescents, emerging adults, and their families. Although progress has been made towards racial equality and equity, I told y'all 30 out of 100 is progress to them. And it's probably even less than 30 out of 100. So what is progress? Okay. Can you name or imagine in your mind 5 Black families that have not experienced racism through the school systems? How about the workforce? How about the healthcare system? 5. What about 3? I'm talking generations. From grandma and big mama and pawpaw all the way down to you and your child. Can you? And so that progress is not the way we gauge progress. The evidence to support the continued negative impact of racism on health and well-being through implicit and explicit biases, institutional structures, and interpersonal relationships is clear. Failure to address racism will continue to undermine health equity for all children, adolescents, emerging adults and their families. Let's go down and see what they talk about here. The social environment in which children are raised shapes child and adolescent development, and pediatricians are poised to prevent and respond to environmental circumstances that undermine child health. Pediatrics as a field has yet, okay, they talk about progress in the last paragraph, but as you can see, pediatrics as a field has yet to systemically address the influence of racism on child. Let me go back over here. Health outcomes, and to prepare pediatricians to identify, manage, mitigate, or prevent risks and harms. How many doctors you know gonna tell your child's racist teacher to quit being racist to them because they're impacting their health? They're gonna write a note. Did you get your note? If your child has an issue at school because of racism and you got to pick them up and take them to urgent care or the ER, did they write you a note saying stop being racist to the kids, you making them sick? I want to know. Recognizing that racism has significant adverse effects on the individuals who receives, commits, and observes. So now we're talking about kids that are observing racism. But I tell you, some children are learning that they don't have any value, right? And we're going to mistreat them in this environment where other children are watching. And that's why I call this school system the white supremacist boot camp training exercise. They're observing the racism. And in kindergarten, they was your child's friend. But by fourth grade, they calling your child a nigga. You know I'm telling the truth. Or they don't want to be a child's friend, or they talking about their hair, right? And some of them, they don't do that. They know how to say it in a different way. But these are the calls that I get. So we're going to deal with the hard truth and information that's uncomfortable today. Substantial investments in dismantling structural racism are required to facilitate societal shifts necessary for optimal development of children in the United States. So let's see what the American Academy of Pediatrics is committed to. The American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP, is committed to reducing the ongoing costs and burden of racism to children, the healthcare system, and society. And you know what? Because this was in 2019, you ask people, what happened to this? They'll say, oh, COVID happened. Oh, so COVID didn't allow y'all to be fully committed to the anti-racism campaign you was on, the commitment that you said you were going to make in 2019, right? Come on. Show me the proof in the outcomes. I don't want to talk about how much people are planning to do and what they're committing to do and all of that when I'm saying, where's the proof? And you should be saying the same thing. Stop listening to people telling you all these major plans they have to address something, and they're not able to show you any proof of their outcomes, any proof of their progress. I want to see your progress rate. I want to see how many lives you've changed so far, right? I don't want you to keep telling me that you're committed to doing something, because I don't believe that commitment when there's no proof. Today's children, adolescents, and emerging adults are increasingly diverse. Strategies to address health and development issues across the pediatric lifespan that incorporate ethnicity, culture, and circumstance are critical to achieving a reduction in health disparities. Accordingly, pediatrics should be at the forefront of addressing racism as a core social determinant. The inclusion of race, so they're not talking about color blindness, Because some people, oh, we don't see color. You guys are making this issue worse because you keep talking about race. If you stop talking about it, maybe the racism will go away. Shut up. You're lying. That's what you say to them. Okay? There's no way that you, from newborn, entering into the world, into where you're at, however old you are right now, don't see color. You see all the colors on the spectrum. So when they say, oh, we don't see color, they're lying. Are you blind? I just want to know. Because we talking real talk. Right? You don't see colors. Which one? No, you really only see your color. That's the truth. You don't want to acknowledge everyone else's is what they're saying. Okay. So stop accepting that silly, foolish lie. We don't see color. If you guys stop talking about it, maybe it'll just go away. No, that you just want 25 more years of being a racist, supremacist, so-called whatever you are, to continue to oppress us. And we're supposed to just sit here and believe you don't see color. Get your eyes checked. Okay. That's all I got for them. The inclusion of racism is in alignment with the health equity pillar of the AAP strategic plan. You want to see that? Go look it up. You got to click number 15 for the footnote. In a series of workshops in 2016 during national meetings of pediatricians, 2016, y'all see that? This ain't new. I mean, if you go in the health journals of the 50s and 60s, I'm sure you'll find similar language. That's when, people was working and committed on stuff too, right? During the civil unrest, social unrest eras, people are committed to working hard on stuff. All of these strategic plans come out. In the 50s and 60s, you have this civil rights movement where there's fighting in the streets, in the courthouses, in the schools, on buses, at lunch counters, in the churches, you name it. And they wrote the strategic plans then, and they were all committed after that. Not all of them, right? But this is what it said, right? From the government on down, so that they can tell you, stop with all the noise. The Kerner Commission report, riot report is what some people call it, gave definite recommendations on how to systemically address the anti-Black hate that we suffer from at the hands of these oppressors every day. Did they listen? Show me the proof. Show me the outcomes. So what they have learned how to do clearly is say, here's the strategic plan. Even though we might have got it from, the plan we showed y'all grandma and them. This is what we gonna do. This is our commitment. Dust it off the shelf and reintroduce it. And you see no outcomes. Tell me where the progress is. In a series of workshops in 2016 national meetings of pediatricians, 3 strategic actions were identified. Development of a task force within AAP to address racism and other forms of discrimination that impact the health status and outcomes of minority youth, development of a policy statement on racism, and integration of evidence-based anticipatory guidance about racism into Bright Futures. Now let's go down. The objective of this policy statement is to provide an evidence-based document focused on the role of racism in child and adolescent development and health outcomes. This policy statement will allow pediatricians to implement recommendations in practice that will better address the factors that make some children more vulnerable than others. The statement also builds on existing AAP policy recommendations associated with other social determinants of health, such as poverty, housing insecurity, child health equity, immigration status, and early childhood adversity, which they call ACEs, trauma. See that word right there? So when you talk about trauma, did the doctors, the therapists, any of the people in the medical field ever tell you, because, oh, it's due to racism, it's due to structural inequities, the institution did that to you? Have you heard that? I want to see the note. Bring the doctor's note, bring the therapist's note. Did they deem you traumatized from the racism you experienced in school? Somebody tell me, please. Did they say that the determinants of your health outcomes, and some of the health issues that you and your family have faced came from the racism, institutional United States of America racism you experience in housing insecurity? I want to know. You ready? Somebody bring the note, please. Okay. Somebody bring the note. The doctor's note. Because we're talking about doctors here. We're talking about medical practitioners. Racism as a core determinant of child health. Racism is a core social determinant of health that is a driver of health inequities. The World Health Organization defines social determinants of health as the conditions in which people are born, grow, live, work, and age. These determinants are influenced by economic, political, and social factors linked to health inequities, avoidable inequalities in health between groups of people within populations and between countries. Okay. These health inequities are not the result of individual behavior choices or genetic predisposition, but are caused by economic, political, and social conditions, including racism. So what they're saying right here is that the health inequities, the social determinant of health that is a driver of the health inequities, are not a result. The health inequities themselves are not the result of individual behavior choices or a genetic predisposition. But if you genetically predisposed to have melanin, we know what that is, right? But I get it, looking at it from a societal perspective, but are caused by economic, political, and social conditions, including racism. So some of the issues y'all facing, many of the issues you may be facing, are right here. It's talking about these health inequities. It's talking about the social determinant of health outcomes. Okay. The impact of racism has been linked to birth disparities and mental health problems in children and adolescents. Did you get a note from the doctor? Did you get a note? Did the psychologist write you a note? Okay. Did the pediatrician, the OBGYN, when you was having issues in your pregnancy, or maybe some of y'all might have lost children, maybe through miscarriage, or had premature babies, did they write you a note? Did they tell you that this is linked to racism and mental health problems in children and adolescents? The biological mechanism that emerges from chronic stress leads to increased and prolonged exposure to stress, prolonged levels of exposure to stress hormones and oxidative stress at the cellular level. Told you. They're changing your child's health at the cellular level. Every day, you send them back where they're getting mistreated because they're Black. Prolonged exposure to stress hormones, such as cortisol, leads to inflammatory reactions that predispose individuals to chronic disease. Y'all know what chronic disease is? You need to know. Is diabetes a chronic disease? What about asthma? What about obesity? What about mental health things such as anxiety, PTSD? Chronic, are they going to continuously suffer from them? Did your doctor write you a note saying that your prolonged or your child's prolonged exposure to stress hormones such as cortisol led to your inflammatory reaction and predisposed you to chronic disease because you were getting treated bad by racists because you were a victim of racism? Did they write you a note? Did they explain this to you? I want to know. Was that part of the consultation? And I want to be very clear. I am not here to side with everything that the doctors are saying. I'm utilizing this research to show you what is going on. As an example, racial disparities in the infant mortality rate remain, and the complications of low birth weight have been associated with perceived racial discrimination and maternal stress. Okay, so look at that data. You see the footnotes. You go and look at the research that they have to prove their statement. Investments in policies to address social determinants of health, such as poverty, and everybody that's enduring through racism is not living in poverty, right? So we know that there have been numerous policies saying that the way that you deal with inequities as far as like discrimination is through addressing poverty, but everybody that's dealing with racism are not living in poverty. Okay, so let's just make that clear. But let's talk about the ways in which institutional attempts have been made to try to deal with the social determinants of health. Okay, poverty have yielded improvements in the health of children. So the Food Stamp Program, a war on poverty initiative, first developed in the 1930s during the Great Depression and later revived in the 1960s, is linked to improvement in birth outcomes. Your grandma and them have food stamps? Where were we in the 1930s? Did it improve our children's outcomes? What about the 1960s? So a lot of y'all might not know who is the biggest benefactor of food stamps and welfare. And if you don't know, go look it up. I don't have time to go over that today. Okay. But what I'm saying to you is these are the efforts. This is what the document is saying to you. Here are some of the investments, institutional investments, meaning the government, to address the social determinants of health. Okay. Efforts in education, housing, and child health insurance have also led to improved health outcomes for issues such as lead poisoning, injuries, asthma, cancer, neurotoxicity, cardiovascular disease, and mental health problems. Expansion of child health insurance has improved health care access for children, with significant gains for African American and Hispanic children in terms of access to well child doctor and dental visits. How's that access helping y'all? See, because I got an issue. If I got access and then I got to come over here and fight 10 doctors to listen to what I'm saying about me and my children because they don't want to tell you that your issues are connected to the discrimination that you faced, to the way that the system institutionalized racism, but they want us to go searching around to figure out how to live a better life when you got to show up back to the racist ass job you work, right? And your child got to go back to the school where they going to call him a nigga and hit him upside the head and the teachers ain't going to listen to him, right? So if I have a well child doctor and dental visit, But this other domain is exploiting and oppressing me even if I get a good doctor. Where's the improvement? I want to know. I want to know, where is the progress? What is the rate of progress? Is it 1% a year? Watch that word, progress. We've made progress. And then watch what people are saying. They've progressed in what? Giving access? How's that access helping? Despite these improvements, it is important to recognize that children raised in African American, Hispanic, and American Indian populations continue to face higher risks of parental unemployment and reside in families with significantly lower household net wealth relative to white children in the United States, posing barriers to equal opportunities and services that optimize health and vocational outcomes. Okay, so we talk about the privilege, right? And how that affects outcomes. Well, they just said that optimizing health and vocational outcomes, right there. You see it right there. Okay, juvenile justice involvement is also a critical social determinant of health because racial inequity continues to shape the juvenile justice system. Oh, don't I know that one well? How many times do I get parents and families calling me crying because they locked up their children, took them straight from the school to the jailhouse, and now won't even give the parents any information on why they even holding the kid? And then next thing you know, 2 weeks later, they got a written confession that the child didn't sign without the parents being there about something that, whatever the issue may be. And now the parents sitting there trying to fight the juvenile justice system. I've been in these hearings. Okay. So I just want you to know, even if it sounds outlandish, believe it. Parents don't lie about what happened to their children. They have no reason to. People don't have a reason to lie on the juvenile justice system. Right? Believe it. And so, because racial inequity continues to shape the juvenile justice system, this area is a modern example of race being an important determinant of short term and long term outcomes. The AAP published a statement in 2011 focusing on key health issues of justice involved youth, which was recently revised to include an in-depth discussion on racial and ethnic inequalities for this population. Did the doctor write your child a note when they got out of juvenile hall? I want to know. Did they say this child has key health issues because of the juvenile justice system, where racial and ethnic inequalities permeate? Where's your proof? This document works, right? Although the overall rates of youth incarceration have decreased, African American, Hispanic, and American Indian youth continue to be disproportionately represented. While incarcerated, youth experience additional adverse experience such as solitary confinement and abuse that have the potential to undermine social emotional development and general developmental outcomes. Differential treatment of youth offenders on the basis of race shapes an individual's participation and ultimate function in society. This type of modern racism must be recognized and addressed if the U.S. seeks to attain health equity. Does the U.S. seek to attain equity at all? Ask yourself that. You know the answer. Okay. So the development as race as a construct. Race as a social construct is rooted in history and remains a mechanism through which social class has been controlled over time. Flawed science was used to solidify the permanence of race reinforce the notions of racial superiority and justify differential treatment on the basis of phenotypic differences as people from different parts of the world came into contact with each other. Now, I gotta say, I don't mind being different. Matter of fact, I like being unique and not like anybody else. I'm glad that there's only one me. Okay. It's like snowflakes. Not saying that, anything about like scientifically, of course, we're not snowflakes, but it's like fingerprints, snowflakes. You look at them, they're all different. Even twins don't share exactly the same everything, right? So there is a beauty that can be seen all throughout everything that you look at. There's a beauty in uniqueness. I don't mind being different, but you're not about to bash me and my kids upside the head because you don't like my differences, because you believe that you're superior in some kind of way, right? And have no evidence of being superior to anybody. It's all in your mind. It's imagined, right? I'm not gonna, get differential treatment on the basis of melanin. This is phenotypic differences. I'm saying melanin and afros. What grows out of your hair? Because all of y'all know good and well that you didn't seen the crown ag movement all across this nation, and people happen to cut their locks and cut they this and this, all of that. People getting suspended, our children enduring that mess because of what naturally grows out of their body. Okay. And if we were to really look at genes, eumelanin, pheomelanin, we'll see what's recessive and what's dominant. You have to make sure that you understand, though. Because if you don't understand, you'll go ahead and allow this differential treatment to be justified on the basis of your melanin and afro puffs. You'll think, well, better go over there and put a perm in their hair or straighten it out, or maybe we get a wig or whatever so that we can acquiesce to notions of racial superiority. We talk about this another day, though. We talk about this AAP, American Academy of Pediatrics document about the impact of racism on child and adolescent health today. Okay. So, race emerged as a social classification to assign dominance of some social classes over others. Scientific, anthropologic, and historical inquiry further solidified race as a social construct. Modern science, however, has demonstrated that there is only one biological race. I told you all know some of these people human. Y'all don't be listening to me when I say this. Okay. And that declines phenotypic differences in skin and eye color, hair texture, and bone structure at the core of early anthropologic research were insufficient to establish different races among human beings. So here you have the key word. I know some of you guys, when you call me and you say, this is what happened, can you believe it? I ask you the question, are they human? Are they human? Because if so, they need to prove it. Because humans don't act like that. Right? Anyway, Dr. Francis Collins, former director of the National Human Genome Project and presently the director of the National Institutes of Health, has affirmed that humans are 99% the same at the level of their genome. Despite this efforts to collect, organize, and categorize individuals on the basis of the plausibility of the 0.1% human variation remain a force of scientific discovery. Yeah, well, I need to see, the DNA of the seed of Satan, because some of the things that these people do to our children, I still ask the question: prove their humanity, please. Force of scientific discovery, innovation, and medical pharmaceutical. I was going to call it pharmacological collaborations, rather than focusing on preventing the social conditions that have led to racial disparity. Science and society continue to focus on the disparate outcomes that have resulted from them, often reinforcing the posited biological underpinnings of flawed racial categories. It's kind of like I was telling y'all, the colorblind people argue that if we focus on race, we're going to keep reinforcing the behavior. But if we ignore it and don't talk about it, but we didn't create this social construct, neither did our ancestors. Y'all did. So we're going to talk about it today. Although race was used in these ways has been institutionalized. So although race used in these ways has been institutionalized, so if the foundations be corrupt, what can man do? Linked to health status and impeded our ability to improve health and eliminate health disparities. It remains a powerful measure that must be better measured. It remains a powerful measure that must be better measured, carefully used, and potentially replaced to mark progress in pediatric health disparities research. As such, it is important to examine the historical underpinnings of race used as a tool for subjugation. American racism was transported through European colonization. Ain't that something? Tell us something we don't know. It began with the subjugation, displacement, and genocide of American Indian populations and was subsequently bolstered by the importation of African slaves to frame the economy of the United States. Like I said, I might not agree with everything in this document, but we're going to read this document because I want you guys to know what are the practitioners in medicine, pediatric medicine, saying, and what have they been saying, right? You got your doctor's note? Although institutions such as slavery were abolished more than a century ago, discriminatory practices or policies, that's what policies are, practices, guiding practices is what a policy boils down to, such as Jim Crow laws, were developed to legalize subjugation. As the United States expanded west in North America and into Alaska and the Pacific Islands, the diversity of populations encompassing the United States also expanded. Did they call it westward expansion? Did the doctors call it manifest destiny? This is what they're talking about? Check it out. Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander, Alaskan Native, Asian American, and Latino populations have experienced oppression and similar exclusions from society. Although some racial and or ethnic groups have received reparations, the doctor write you a note to get reparations? If you got it, let me see it. Did the doctors sign up to be on the reparations committee and talk about this health, social determinants of health? Did they come together just like they did to form this document to say anything about reparations? I want to know. Somebody, if you got the proof, put the link in. If you got the note, send it to me through Messenger on one of my social media platforms. I want to see it. The doctor writes you a note saying that, those people have received reparations and you didn't, and you should. Anyway, although some racial and or ethnic groups have received reparations and fared better than others over time, remnants of these policies remain in place today and continue to oppress the advancement of people from historically aggrieved groups. Interesting. Through these underpinnings, racism became a socially transmitted disease. Y'all like having a socially transmitted disease? That's what they're calling it. The American Academy of Pediatrics doctors, right? Medical practitioners are letting you know that racism is a socially transmitted disease passed down through generations, leading to the inequities observed in our population today. Although the endemic, they just called the socially transmitted disease an endemic. The endemic nature of racism has powerful impacts on perceived and actual health outcomes. Actual, perceived health outcomes. It is also important to note that other forms of discrimination are actively at play and have created a syndemic with the potential to undermine child and family health further. It is important to address racism's impact on health and well-being of children, adolescents, emerging adults to avoid perpetuating a health system that does not meet the needs of all patients. Pediatricians are uniquely positioned to both prevent and mitigate the consequences of racism as a key and trusted source of support for pediatric patients and their families. Your doctor talk to you about this? I want to know. Did you get a notice, a booklet, a program when you went to the doctor's office? Did you see this printed out on the desk? Did they put it on your child checkup clipboard? Somebody tell me today. I want to know. I ain't seen it. Kaiser didn't give it to me. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how was you going to get this information? Well, I'm here to tell you. And this is from 2019. So, they stated in this article, they wrote this from 2011. I ain't see it. I don't know how many times from 2011 and 2019 to now I've taken my children into the doctor's office, and I've never seen a booklet that says from the American Academy of Pediatrics, the impact of racism on child and adolescent health, social determinants. I never had the doctor sit down and say, hey, wanted to let you know that I think some of these results and some of these outcomes that are affecting your health that I see here on the labs or whatever may be attributed to discrimination. You hear that from the doctor? I want to see it. Where's the note? What about the therapist? You go to the therapy office, they got a diagnostic manual with this inside. Do it say on the DSM-5 4321, whatever one you want to find, that the impact of your mental health, that racism is an impact to your mental health? How about we just talk about PTSD? You got the note? Say in the DSM-5 that domestic terrorism, watching police brutality, watching our people get hunted, targeted, beat up, beat down, even the smallest stuff, children getting mistreated in school, having to fight the system because they don't like your baby afro puffs or your son's locks. Did they say that the trauma and the stress you experience from doing all of that is attributed to racism? I want to see the note. Because if you didn't know, the American Association, or I think it's the American Psychological Association. I think that's going to be APA. I gotta look it up again. I haven't looked at that document in a while. They got one of these too, y'all. They got one of these too. I want to see. I didn't see it in the DSM. Did the DSM classify racists as sick and twisted and pathological? Did the doctors tell the racist children they got a problem? I want to know. You got to know? I didn't see that booklet. Did the doctors tell the racist parents to stop raising their children in an environment of racism because they was making other kids sick? I want to see that. Where's it at? Children can distinguish the phenotypic differences associated with race during infancy. I was alluding to this earlier. Babies see color. Don't tell me you don't see color because you're lying unless you're blind. And maybe even blind people see color. I don't know. Therefore, effective management of difference as normative is important in a diverse society. To identify, address, and manage the impacts of racism on child health, it is critical that pediatricians understand 3 key levels through which racism operates: institution, personally mediated, and internalized. You see this? Internalized. Okay. I want y'all to think about what it means for assimilation, to acculturation to happen. I want you to think about all the ways that they're saying that your body, your health, okay? Let's talk about health. Your child's health is affected by racism. Is it internalized? Is it personally mediated? Is it institutional? Or is it all of the above? The experience of race is also impacted by other identities that people have related to ethnicity, sex, religious affiliation, immigrant status, family composition, all of these above. But we talking about our children and their racism that they have to experience, racial attacks, targeting and profiling, mistreatment, all because they got melanin in their skin, afro puffs, and locks. And others that may be navigated alongside race. And I don't see all these other people showing up for Black children. That's why I said that. Much of the discussion to date related to the historical underpinnings of race deal with institutionalized or structural racism expressed through patterns of social institutions. For example, governmental organizations, schools, banks, and courts of law. Well, hell, I mean, you done named everything. Really? The banking, the laws, the government, and the educational system. Who's in control? So these patterns expressed through social institutions that implicitly or explicitly discriminate against individuals from historically marginalized groups. Children experience the outputs of social racism through places where they live, education where they learn, economic means what they have, and legal means how their rights are executed. Research has identified the role of implicit and explicit personally mediated racism characterized by assumptions about the abilities, motives, or intents of others on the basis of race. So, what they're saying is explicit and implicit personally mediated racism, which is racism characterized by assumptions about the abilities, motives, or intents of others on the basis of their race. Looking at the identified role of this type of racism. And they have identified the role as a factor affecting healthcare delivery and general health outcomes. The impacts of structural and personally mediated racism may result in internalized racism, internalizing racial stereotypes about one's racial group. A positive racial identity mediates experiences of discrimination and generates optimum youth development outcomes. Positive racial identity. A positive racial identity mediates experiences of discrimination and generates optimal youth development outcomes, but you want to send your kids to school where they can't even get a book about their history, where they only bring up out one time a year in February 3 people: Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and some other person, maybe. You want to send your children into a place where they will internalize racial stereotypes about themselves, where they can't even access any materials, books, anything, programs, whatever it may be, where their identity, their racial identity is lifted up in a positive way. And you think that they're going to come out okay from that? I want to see the doctor's note. Where's it at? Put this on the clipboard for the well child visit so that we can know what we're dealing with, doc. The importance of pro-social identity is critical during adolescence when young people must navigate the impacts of social status and awareness of personally mediated discrimination based on race. Did y'all show up for the board meeting? Did you present this evidence as sound proof to the U.S. Department of Education? They got it, I'm sure. They got their own. But if you are positioning and committing that you're going to call these things out, did the doctors write a note during any of these attacks on Black children? I haven't found one note. Not have Freedom of Information Act requested, Open Public Records requested a lot of documents during the time of me helping children and families. And I have not yet to see one note or one intervention or one solid statement from a practitioner, a medical practitioner, saying that this is because of racism. You are affecting this child's health. If you got a note, I want to see it. Although children and adolescents who are targets of racism experience the most significant impact, bystanders are also adversely affected by racism. As an example, young adults who were bystanders to racism and other forms of victimization as youth experienced profound psychologic and physiological effects I'm sorry, I lost my spot. I got it back. Effects when asked to recall the memory of a past anchoring event as a victim or bystander that are comparable to those experienced by first responders after a major disaster. That's the bystander effect. That's the bystanders that are adversely affected by racism. Three core features that characterize the abusive event were as follows. One, an individual gets hurt psychologically or physically. You see that? Two, a power differential exists versus the target individual, resulting in domination and erosion of the target's self esteem. And three, the abuse is repetitive, causing stress levels to increase because of anticipation of future events. Internalized negative stereotypes related to race can unconsciously erode self perception and capacity and may later play out in the form of stereotype threat or the fear of confirming a negative stereotype of one's race. Oh no, but my child, that's not going to happen to my child. Oh no, they know who they are. They not going to end up like that. I'm just going to go ahead and send them into this school. What's wrong with you? That thought is pathological. You're sick. And I just got to say it. You send them back every day to the people that are mistreating them. And they're going to be all right. What is getting into their subconscious and eroding it? And you think because you celebrate Kwanzaa, it's going to help undo that? Because you have them dressed in dashikis and African clothing on Sunday to go to church or wherever y'all go, it's going to undo this. Get your mind right. Stop sending your kids into your enemy for an education. Stereotype threats can undermine academic and vocational attainment, key developmental milestones for the victims. Underachievement then reinforces the stereotype held by both the perpetrator and the victim. That's how they keep in the cycle going. Further enhancing the vulnerability of the victim and bystander to repeated acts of overt or covert victimization. These observations suggest that universal interventions to eliminate racism experienced as a victim or bystander from the lives of children and to engage in active societal anti-racism bystander behavioral intervention may optimize well-being for all children and the adults who care for them. Where's the universal interventions? That means all of y'all. Every single domain. Healthcare, education, housing, all of these things that were constructed the way that they are. Where's the universal intervention? Have you arrived? You see the progress? And you guys say, oh, maybe they don't know. We should just tell them what our issues are. No, they know, honey. They know so much. They done studied and came up with a strategic plan. Where's the plan? Where's your doctor's note? You got it? Matter of fact, when's the last time your doctor told you about any of this? I don't think they have. Where's the universal intervention? For individual intervention to occur, however, bystanders must identify crucial situations, visit them as an emergency, develop a sense of personal responsibility, have self efficacy to succeed with the intervention, perceive the costs of non intervention as high, and consciously decide to help. Research has demonstrated that racism has an effect on health across racial groups and in communities reporting high levels of racism, but that racially diverse environments such as school can benefit all youth by improving cognitive skills such as critical thinking and problem solving. What they teaching at your child's school? Do you even know if it's racially diverse? And then I get the people saying, well, it's the black folks treating the black kids bad. Take them out of that school too. Obviously, you see that the internalized racism, where people begin to internalize the stereotypes about one's own group, are in effect. They're pathological. Don't be pathological with them. Don't be sick with them. Stop sending your children to a place where they're mistreated. If you take your child home and you treat them like some of these people at these schools treat them, or if you do anything at all, they're going to call the Department of Child Services on you. They're going to call CPS on you. Then what you going to do? You going to call the doctor? Can you call any of these doctors at the top and say, hey, I read your policy statement on August 2019 that you put out, and this happened to me, as a matter of fact. Can you come and help me? Can you intervene? Can you talk to my child's school? Can you talk to the racists over there and tell them they're being bystanders? And that this is the impact of being a bystander. And you know, as a child, you know, I mean, you know, if there's a child that's committing racist targeted acts, right? They were initially a bystander. This is what they learned. This is what they learned to do. And that's why I call the school system in the United States of America, public, traditional, government, schools, whatever you want to call them. I educate my own kids at home. A system designed to teach these things because it's a white supremacist boot camp training exercise. So one child is learning how to oppress other children and how to dominate other children. All right, and so let's go down to this part where we left off. I just want to know, did you see it on the well checkup clipboard? I mean, because you know, I got 10 text messages from Kaiser about a damn flu shot, but didn't nobody tell me about the development of race as a social construct and the determinants of health because in outcomes because of that. But they can show enough call and remind me it's about to be flu season. They can call and say, hey, you know, I'll get an email. We need you to fill out the survey about your child's health. Did you ask me if my child was experiencing racism? Did you talk about it at all? Or was you waiting for me to ask? I want to know. Where's the doctor's note at? Where is the doctor's note? Did you get the doctor's note? Did they email it to you? Was it on the table? Did you see this pamphlet on the table at the doctor's office? Did they have a conference? Call all the black parents in, say, hey, we need to tell y'all something. And this is what our intervention is going to look like. Did you hear from the HMO or the PPO? So let's look at the ways that, this erosion starts to take place. Okay. So we saw that the underachievement then reinforces the stereotype held by the perpetrator and victim, further enhancing the vulnerability of the victim and the bystander to repeated acts of overt and covert victimization. Okay, we've already read that part, right? Now, we saw that there needed to be some universal interventions. Okay, racism at the intersection of of education and child and adolescent health. Education and vocational attainment are key developmental outcomes that pediatricians monitor to access for successful growth and development. After accounting for sleep and time spent at home, children spend a significant portion of their time in educational settings. Educational achievement is an important predictor of long-term health and economic outcomes for children. Adults with a college degree live longer and have lower rates of chronic disease than those who do not graduate from college. It is critical for pediatricians to recognize the institutional, personally mediated, and internalized levels of racism that occur in the educational setting, because education is a critical social determinant of health for children. Disparities in educational access and attainment, along with racism experienced in the educational setting, affect the trajectory of academic achievement for children and adolescents and ultimately impact health. Taking your kid back tomorrow? You hear all this and you'll say, oh, well, they got to go to this school. Okay, you're going to take them back. You're willfully subjecting them yourself to allowing them to be in an educational environment or setting where you know they're experiencing racism and discrimination. And now you know that it's ultimately impacting their health. Here they go. Chronic absenteeism, defined as missing 10% of school days in an academic year, is a strong predictor of educational achievement. Well, why are the black kids not going to school? I'm asking about people that I look like. Okay. Maybe because they're experiencing racism in the educational setting and ain't nobody doing nothing about it. But I'm saying today, you're going to take your kid back to the parents, families. Are you going to take your child back and drop them off to experience this racism in the educational setting? Chronic absenteeism disproportionately affects children of color, children living in poverty, children with disabilities, and children with chronic disease. Well, if you got the dang disability or the chronic disease and the poverty from a racist construct, I mean, where's your doctor's note at? Where's the intervention? I understand why some of these kids don't want to go to school, because of what is happening to them or what they may be witnessing happening to their friends, and no adult in that environment, or maybe you got one or two that aren't even working in their class, is intervening aggressively for them. And you wonder why they just go straight to sleep when they come home. Wake up, do it again. Go to sleep. Wake up, do it again. Stomach hurting. They pulling their hair out and biting their nails. Oh yeah. Every time you pull up to the school, they got a problem. They don't want to get out. They coming up with all kind of excuses. Mama, daddy, I don't want to go to school today. And you over there getting on them because they're experiencing racism in their educational environment and it's affecting their health outcomes. Pay attention. In high school, 21% of Hispanic and 23% of African American and 27% of American Indian children were chronically absent. They talk about 2013 and 14 compared with 17% of white children. Immigration enforcement and the fear of apprehension by authorities can negatively affect school attendance for Hispanic and Black immigrants, thereby perpetuating inequalities in attendance. According to National Center for Education Statistics, the graduation rate for white students nationally in 2015 and 16 was 88%, compared with 76% for African American students, 72% for American Indian students, and 79% for Hispanic students. Disparities in chronic absenteeism and high school graduation rates prevent children from realizing the full benefits of educational attainment and can increase the development of chronic disease and reduce overall life expectancy. You're making your child sick by forcing them to stay in an environment that made them sick too. You're keeping them sick, I'll say. And it's going to affect their health by increasing the development of chronic disease and reducing their overall life expectancy. Do you think about that? Or are you going to send them back to tomorrow? Where's your doctor's note? Where are the medical practitioners intervening for you? Did they tell you this at the well child checkup? Although the landmark U.S. Supreme Court case, Brown versus Board of Education, banned government-sponsored segregation and laid a foundation for equal access to a quality public education. That's all we got? That is the historical win for Black folks. Brown versus Board of Education. You hear people talk about it to death as if that's something to celebrate. Y'all got one win. What you gonna do? We're gonna talk about Ruby Bridges and all of them. We're gonna wait till February though. And that's a win. One landmark Supreme Court case. Now what you gonna do? They undid affirmative action. What you gonna do? You gonna keep talking about Brown v. Board? You gonna keep celebrating one landmark U.S. Supreme Court case? And because Brown v. Board says so, I'm gonna drop my kid off to this public school where they racist as hell, mistreating and discriminating again. But it's okay. We're gonna be all right because we got Brown versus Board of Education. Wake up. The U.S. Department of Education continues to report institutional or structural inequality in educational access and outcomes, even in the most diverse and well-resourced communities in the United States. I need some of y'all to hear that. I need some of y'all that thought because you're going to send your child to this well-to-do school where they have nice fields for sports and a great whatever parking lot. I don't know how you pick the school. You show not looking at the data. Because if you were looking at the data, the academic achievement and outcomes and progress rates, you probably would think a little bit different. Or because, you know, somebody told you that's a good school. Did you ask the question, what is good? Define it. Hmm? Can my child wear their afro puffs and locks without getting in trouble to school at that school? Or did you just listen to Brown versus Board of Education and whoever else and said, you know what? We're going to go to this school and that well resourced and diverse community. Your black child is still getting oppressed, exploited, and repressed. Hmm? You got a doctor's note? Students from historically aggrieved groups have less access to experienced teachers, advanced coursework, and resources, and are also more harshly punished for minor behavioral infractions occurring in the school setting. They're less likely to be identified for and receive special education services, and in some states, school districts with more non-white children receive lower funding at any given poverty level than districts with more white children. And sometimes they're over identified for special education services. Okay. Children may also experience personally mediated racism early in their schooling, which may be internalized and ultimately affect their interactions with others. Don't blame your child, blame the teacher. How about that? Stop sending them back. How about that? Early teacher child interactions are important for long term academic outcomes. The relationship of teacher to student across ages and grade levels influences social adjustment, literacy, math skills, grade point average, and scholastic aptitude test scores. Given the critical nature of the student teacher relationship, it is important to explore how racism and implicit bias affect this dynamic. Student teacher racial mismatch, meaning they don't have cultural congruence with ethnically matched providers, can impact academic performance with studies showing that African American children are more likely to receive a worse assessment of their behavior than they have a non when they have a non-Hispanic white teacher than when they have an African American teacher. This finding may result from racial bias in teachers' expectations of their students, with data demonstrating that white and other non African American teachers are more likely than African American teachers to predict that African American students would not finish high school. Y'all hear this? Oh, but all they need, Christina, is unconscious bias training. How's that working for you? They've been doing that. They've been doing that on police forces across the nation. How's it working? They've been doing unconscious bias training. Show me the progress rates and outcomes. I want to see them. Did the doctors show up to talk to them at the unconscious bias training? Did the medical practitioners who are committed go to the school board meeting? Somebody send me the video. I want to see the note. Similarly, data indicate that teachers may underestimate the ability of African American and Latino students, which can lead to lower grade point averages and fewer years of schooling. African American students who have one African American teacher in elementary school are more likely to graduate from high school and enroll in college than their peers who do not have African American teachers. The proposed mechanism for this improved long-term educational outcome is the exposure to a role model early in the educational experience. Why don't they get a white kid's role model? They're the ones being racist. It sounds like the teachers need a role model too. The white teachers, non-black teachers need a role model. They're gonna send the role model to the Boys and Girls Scouts. That's the role model. Where are the role models that are willing to go to the racist individuals and teach them and expose them and make a difference there, right? You're talking about one African American students who have one African American teacher in elementary school are going to graduate from high school and enroll in college. That's the benchmark. That's how you set the bar. Interesting. We're going to pick this up after this paragraph on the next time, because we still got a lot left, but I want you guys to think about everything that we already talked about, right? What you heard in this document, everything that is including in this document can be found at the American Academy of Pediatrics by going to Google and searching the impact of racism on child and adolescent health, AAP. Make sure you are looking at the 2019 document, and we will pick it up from right here the next time. Are you going to send your child back? What are you going to do to make the difference? Because waiting for the system that was created in the USA around structural racism that codified hate, oppression, discrimination to some, and privilege, access, and opportunities to others to fix the problem is like asking your enemy to be merciful to you. And we see how that works out. What are you going to do? I just showed you the information about the impact on your child's health. I talked to you about the acute illnesses, biting nails, upset stomach, anxiety and stress before school, coming home, falling asleep, complaining about going to school in the morning, or they don't want to, they sleep in the car. That's a trauma response. But you take them in the gate anyway. Instead, what you should be considering is the impact that it's going to have on their lives, such as them developing chronic disease and shortening their life. And then you make an evaluation about your own health, mental health, and physical health, because what would suggest that you are healthy if you drop your child off to a toxic, abusive environment? I want to know. We're going to address the hard stuff today. And so I want you to make that evaluation and think about it. Think about, why would you want your child in an environment that fosters that type of racist behavior? And even if they're not being directly attacked that day or that year, the bystander effect get them too. Go get the document, read it for yourself. I'll be on here again addressing this issue, finishing the document up until we're all the way done. And I want you to ask the people that are supposed to be intervening, universal interventions, medical practitioners. When you go to your well child visit, ask your doctor about this, right? I want to see the doctor's note. I want you to think about ways that you could be educating your own child. Because literally, them going into that toxic environment is slowly killing them. It's like being in a poison chamber where they're putting the gas in slowly, then stopping it, letting you breathe, putting more, stopping it, letting you breathe. And then ultimately, you walking around, your child's walking around wounded and sick, and they aren't who you created them to, God created them to be, and they aren't that baby that you saw all of this potential in when you were holding them in your arms, because you allowed the wicked enemy to educate your children. Then you want to call Christina Lester, and I don't mind helping, but I want for you to take an evaluation of your mentality. When you call and say, Christina, I need your help, then you better be positioned and prepared to go to war and get your child out of that environment. This is not a game. Understand who your enemy is. Understand how this has been a generational issue and how it impacted you and the thoughts that you think about your own identity, and get your child out of there. I'll see y'all later.